Hey everybody. I woke up this morning with a little instruction. I kept hearing La which happens. I mean, I get those things. But something about this felt a little bit, how do I put this? I was unsure about doing a reading or a message. Not because I don't trust La but because there's something that just felt a little bit more mimicky. Something felt kind of like don't trust everything in the messages that come through. And it's interesting because yesterday's message was so beautiful, and it kind of caught me off guard because of where I'm currently at. But there's been a really big, heavy purging process, and we're gonna burn some rosemary. Good morning, by the way. I just woke up. Last night I was guided to, before dream time, was to grab my labradorite skull here. Because of the fact that labradorite's really good for transitional energy. So I am in the process of moving and in relocating and changing careers and so much changing right now that I thought it would be good to assist me. It always reminds me, labradorite, not only transformational, right? Not only like bringing in a lot of like that healthy Pluto energy for myself, but it is very much so kind of a when I have to walk through passageways of time, labradorite's there. So I brought my labradorite skull. It doesn't have a name, but I had purchased this during full moon in Scorpio, and I think it was Pluto in retrograde, and during that time it just was very, very important for me to have. So this is a part of the message too, is this labradorite skull. So the clearings that have been going on have been very heavy. They've been bringing up a lot, including mortality. And I speak to that because there's a collective energy that's been processing out or clearing some of these timelines that show up. And yesterday, right, it was coming up. It was like, all the mortal wounding was coming through, especially in the body. And my body has been purging, has been releasing a lot through the bowels, through the gut. And as a result, there's a lot of concerns coming through about the physical body's health. And of course, a lot of this, is just, it's personal stuff. I'm not going to bring it all here. But it was one of those things that felt like it was a part of some sort of ancient wound. And as a result of this kind of ancient wound, today I'd heard La Firma. And with it, I'm kind of battered and kind of torn today. Like, I'm not all 100%, integrated and feeling the best, but still, it was like, still show up, right? There's this kind of like this sense of like refinement or retune on the way that I activate purpose and work through my journey. And so I chose to pull a card. And the card that came through is Brom, Scrub. This is a part of what's clearing the way. There has been a lot of lately astral shadows and ancestral shadows purging from the template, purging from the reality, and very much so the dissolve or the dissolution of our own energetic and our own, I guess we could say, astral space, which is why Brom is coming through. When I saw this, I had seen a decorated broom kind of patting ourselves on the back, sweeping away, getting rid of whatever, traumas, worries, pains, or thorns, right, are stuck in our journey. So basically, the sharper edges of our own experience choosing to dissolve. So Brom is coming through and saying it is time to sweep away the desires and the paths of the old to create space for the new. It's really interesting because this is kind of coming through with a spring cleaning energy, which is how we make and or create space. Energetic space, living space, whether this is physical, it's astral, energetic. This is all about creating space in your environment, scrubbing away the connections and the spaces, the threads and the tendrils to the wounded remembrance. So as there is one level wounded remembrance, there is also one part healed whole remembrance. So remembrance, whether this is a divine wisdom or an innate wisdom from within you, an actual memory recall, a DNA strand, a process of your own light body, or a process of your own retuning, the way we see or receive things, right? Especially when it comes to some of those, the ancestral traumas, right? Overlays of history. This is one of those things where we recognize that remembrance too has a space of evolution, which we could call reframe. So the way we see ourselves, the way we see life, the way we see our reality has a new space of revealing when we clear out the old tendencies and the old tendrils. So once again, this is about that clear energy moving forward, getting to a space where our energy in our fields, mind, body, soul, feels cleansed, right, of the older kind of like rituals and routines, so we can create space for what this new is. So Brom is a part of that today, clearing the way. What's being asked to be cleared away today from Lacuna? Gununga Gap, seeds. So we're essentially clearing seeds of the older experience, or let's just say clearing seeds. This feels like there have been moments in which the harvest wasn't enriching, right? The harvest wasn't as what we thought it would be. And some of these seeds still have concern, fear, or worry built within them, recognizing that fruit, right, that always, the fruit that comes back, right, or grows after this experience, are sometimes the things that no longer serve. So there are things in our journey that we receive that are a part of life, that are a part of our fulfillment, that we recognize, hey, maybe these things aren't for me anymore. A lot of this clearing of the seed and clearing of, when we clear the seed, we clear the space. When we clear the void, it's almost like we're clearing the distortion that builds up when we're in that quote-unquote void space. So it's interesting, it just took a turn on me, because there have been times where we could see Gununga Gap, right, as your kind of your own energetic space, your connection to source, your connection to God. And so as we clear this seed, we're almost clearing the debris of the seed itself, or the origin, right, of that experience, so we can get very clear on what this space is bringing forward for us. Now, throughout life, there have been overlays of history, overlays of stories, and overlays of narratives that we took on as true. And we're now witnessing that the more that we peel back the decrepit layers of the older existence, experience, and remembrance, the more we create space for source to work through this. Gununga Gap to me always has that God source eternal kind of experience, right? It is living life, living light, organic consciousness opened up its source. But within this space of the everything is clearing up the debris from the everything, right? Like our own, clearing out the interference, clearing out our own messages, clearing out our own seed bank, so it can really start getting refreshed or refined on what it is to come, what it is we want to create. It's one thing to go into the garden and to uproot the weeds, but to uproot the seeds is to uproot some of the original conditioning, the original experience, and some of the original gifts that were bestowed upon us. As an example, right? Some of us might have had a way that we alchemized, right? A way that we transmuted, a way that we worked through our realities. And as a result, we recognize perhaps now in the new versions of self, those things aren't as healthy. Those things aren't as mature. Those things aren't as ripened as they could have been. This is a part of, it's really interesting because now that I'm being shown fall and like we're stepping into this autumn period, at least in the northern hemisphere, this might actually be a southern hemisphere message, because spring is always that blossoming. It is that time of seeding. So take what resonates, leave the rest at home. But there is this sense of refinement that comes through. And when I see fall and I see the leaves falling off, we're kind of letting go of the older thoughts, of the older emotions and the older seeds, which could be older intentions. And perhaps now, as we're clearing our original intentions, we're starting to see that intentionality has changed, which means what we set forward, what we create, what we put out into the universe, what we take action on is indeed changing. Ooh. Elven light, benefic. So perhaps, clearing the intentions of Lafruma, clearing the intentions of the unity field, it's like this dimension itself is clearing, whatever it means to us. Give me a moment here. We're clearing the seeds of the Elven Ring. Now, why? Okay, so this isn't about Lafruma itself. I don't want to state that, but here's what I want to ring true. In regards to our own dimensionality and in regards to our own astral space, something over time has become corrupted because of past lives, because of some of those ancestral wounds or those ancient wounds. So once again, I'm not saying Lafruma, because I'm not going to say that about Lafruma, meaning the deck and all this stuff. I'm not stating that. What I am sharing here is that something over time, the intentions have been masked and layered because of hurts, because of wounds, because of distortions, because of bleed through, because of ancestral identities. And so now as this clears through the field, we're opening up into purifying what this energetic space is, kind of like a container. And as we clear the energetic container from within our own lives, we're going to start seeing things clearer or differently. So this is us like clearing the mirrors, clearing the lenses, clearing the perspective, clearing that space. Especially if there have been wounds from the original seeds. Like, I know for myself, some of the things that happen is, like, for instance, the war runes. The war runes, to me, always bring up a lot, because being such a peaceful inner child and having to work through all of that, those wounds of the runes have always been difficult for myself. That's just an example. But perhaps some of these original things that are clearing right now, like the energy behind this, whether it could be the traumas, the pains, the wounds, and the worries, is clearing from the seed. So things can lighten up and get better. It's offering another angle. This reminds me back to the diamond light perspective, in which, like, we have been seeing things in one way or feeling things in one way. And the more that we clear the space, the more it starts to clear and ring true. And right when I'm speaking of this, ding, it comes through, because this is all about that kind of, like, I want to call it the diamond light template and the diamond light archive. But essentially, there have been crusted layers built up in the dimensional space that we're cleansing through, that can get caught up through collective fields. It can get caught up through personally not taking care of our energetic hygiene. And as a result, when we clear this, we're opening up what springs forward in a new pathways, but in new angles. And I speak to that because if we see, like, Gununga Gap right here, being a part of this center point of awareness, and then we see this offshoot, right? We see this branch, we see this angle. There are new pathways that are opening up, that are being cleared for us right here and right now. That's a part of what the new seeds are. So with new intentionality brings new light. And that new light that comes through for us is a part of what we're getting used to. So we're clearing out what the older kind of like light spectrums were, so the newer light spectrums can open up for us. Static needs. These are the things that actually very much so affected our direct physical manifestation. It was affecting our own bodies. It was affecting our known day-to-day and affecting our routine. You know, it's really fascinating. This is clearing the astral delusion, so it can get very clear on where we need to go from here. This makes so much sense. You know, and I speak of the astral delusion because there was so much in the older reality, in the older dreams, in the older streams that followed life a certain way. And it completely disregarded the human. And it disregarded the human to such a level that our mind withered or deteriorated, our body withered or deteriorated, our emotionality withered and deteriorated, and we became unintegrated with life and with human society. And it's like when we wake up into these realms and we start to work with spirit, is also remembering that we have a human form and we have a human life, and to make sure that we don't get caught in the delusion, right? Don't get caught in the delusion that takes us away from our sense of like what's really important to us. Like, so for instance, right? For instance, I'm going to speak for myself. I, in the beginning, from a space of spiritual immaturity and energetic immaturity, walked into this experience like the Fool card, just kind of like expecting the unexpected, and came out the other end very much so not fully taking care of myself. And here's why. My journey was about the energetic and the spiritual fulfillment was more important than what my physical journey was. And as a result, when I came back to the physicality, I kind of lost touch with life, a grip of my senses, and a sense of reality, which means I'd lost my discernment. And as a result, I didn't have a clear picture because it was just kind of like a free-for-all energetic world. But what happened was there was a lot of learning and conditioning that came through, which allowed the kind of allowed the ego to have a healthy sense of perception over the reality, to the point where we can reality check and not, you know, not fall into the gap or slip into those experiences where we can be misled, misguided, or perhaps take us away from an integrated space of living a good life here on planet Earth. So this in itself is assisting us in being able to unlock the form, unlock the body, unlock the static self, to reclaim its sense of empowerment in how it moves through the world and how it moves through the journey. You know, it's interesting. We see at static needs, we see Brom on both sides, as above, so below, as within, so without. So we recognize that this energy clearing is also a part of the physical clearing that creates the intentionality for the way we move through the world, the way we move through life, and the way that we take care of our own domesticity, right? 66. The physical life, the home, the family. You know, sixes to me always represent everything of the domus, everything of the domicile, everything of the domesticity, meaning everything of the home front, right? So one part of this is where we learn from, and this ancestral aspect, this ancient aspect, perhaps was one in exile, or one that was quote unquote primitive and very, 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 very wild, non-conforming to societal constructs. Now, this in itself, with this static needs, is recognizing that the bridge back to this conscious space of unity light from within us activates the sense to see the body, to see the form, to see the human, and to see others in a new way. This in itself is very much so bringing back that energy of how we live life here on planet Earth, how we care for the mind, the body, and those needs. The physical self, it's an illumination of the physical self with the new perspective, the new arc, which activates what the new walk is. It's a new level of embodiment. So this here, it is releasing ourselves from the distortion in the field that could bring confusion or lack of clarity, or a sense of disorientation, so it can bring back like a physical steadiness or a sense within the form, knowing its way moving forward, that this elven light or this elven form is in fact a thing, and it's integrating back into the physical human structure, the physical human life. recognizing that intentionality is where our needs get met. Okay, so we're clearing those needs. Perhaps it's like, in the past, this could be for some financial responsibilities. Perhaps, I know for myself, like a part of growing up, and this is where, I could feel some emotions coming up from this, and this is kind of the sadness, is that perhaps, when it came to our own finances, our own abundance, right, we were spending it on things that didn't truly matter to us. And now our direct needs are changing. Perhaps it's like, yeah, we do need to afford, perhaps going to the chiropractor, right? Saving your money for a place to live, buying clothes, not just, this is kind of like a maturation over the way we see how we meet our physical needs. The elven light, the elven ring, the love, is important in the seeds moving forward, because we're looking at how we replenish the body to enjoy life's physical manifestations. This is interesting. This is almost like, this in a sense is the exfoliating scrub of life. I'm going to have someone who's going to crack over this. This is the exfoliating scrub that gives you an opportunity to clear the layers, the old skin, right? To really replenish and to sense what's coming through in the new birth of you that's showing up, and in the new life that is emerging. And I know I'm reading this 20 different ways from Sunday, but it is kind of like, in an essence, or in a sense, in the new intentions, love returning so the body can be replenished, because we're recognizing that there are things, there have been gaps in our own journey. Okay, so these gaps are points of separation, and these distortions are the things that, as they clear, require a lot more self-care, self-love, and self-compassion as we're reclaiming our sense of newness from within us. And I speak to that because it's as these kinds of, we're kind of like kaleidoscoping, cycling through the dimensions and the energies here, is that there are things within us where we have been separated from love, right? In our body, in our mindset, perhaps in our day-to-day action, which was bringing things like impulsivity, it was bringing distraction, it was bringing a sense of disorientation. And as a result, love returning to those cells, returning to the fiber of our essence, of our needs, is bringing in 12 in a new way, the elf in 12. And what it is it's bringing love back to the form, love back to the physicality, love back to the day-to-day, and love back to the routine. So life's intentions can be very clear in the movement moving forward, and it's interesting because Butcher's Broom is recognizing that some of us actually do still walk with wounds, traumas, heaviness. And this is the healing light that is actually creating the beneficial sense of life, which means that there are things that are very rewarding about life. There are things that are very rewarding about our day-to-day. There's things that are very rewarding about our journey. And a part of Gununga Gap's intentions, its seed right now, is stating that you can have those things, and love can return to you, to your energy, to the form, right? As within, so without. And these intentions can create a trajectory change, a trajectory shift, or a perspective change in your journey that gives you an opportunity to see things in a new way. Rosemary. If 12 is the container in which we pour the mortar, the Fruma is the mortar. There we go. Your world serpent destiny. Divine alignment? Your is that divine alignment. This is your opportunity to create magic, but it begins with you. And it begins with your seeds, your intentionality. It's like 1 part intention, 1 part love, 1 part body. We're looking at a basic way of manifesting and how we clear out what those older manifestations are. So post new moon is kind of like we set the intention, and so we clear. This is saying that the needle and thread, everything you need to begin sewing or stitching your way through life, meaning through creating, through taking action in things that matter to you, begins with you. It begins with your intention. It begins with your core frequency, the vibration that you hold, and then the physicalization of this experience, which is why when we simplify this, we recognize in which ways Brom is coming through to say there's something that in regards to our day-to-day routine, our physical manifestation, that we clear. Perhaps you need to clear your intentions. Perhaps you need to clear your energy, your field. Perhaps you need to actually clear your dimensionality, or perhaps you need to clear the physical body, a purge, a detoxification, a cleanse. Perhaps it's all 3. Perhaps it's a pairing. Either way, what we're seeing here and now is that there is a clearing or a cleansing that's occurring, that's giving you an opportunity to be in and be one with divine alignment. This divine alignment is what brings in synchronicity, it's what brings in serendipity, it's focus, intention, and then it's putting in the action. It's a moment where things come together. Now, okay. When we step into this divine alignment, we start to honor and really step into what divine perfection is, beyond the details. It's interesting because the mind might want to define, redefine what this is. And right now we have the opportunity to reshape destiny in our own journey. Biblical scholars take note. A part of the ancestral, a part of the astral wounds, and a part of the depiction of life is the belief that, right, perhaps, there's going to be a moment in time that the world ends. Those are some of the wounds that we are continuing to cleanse from the traumas and from our original intentions. And so the question I want to ask you is, if you believe that the world is going to end today, why do you believe that? Where did it come from? The deeper question and the deeper causation. Who in your family line chose to believe that and walk with that and carry with that? Right? The seeds from our unified space. Is it truly unifying to be a part of these depictions and tales? Or are they affecting our day-to-day? Essentially, are these necessary conditions and wounds moving forward? As an example, there are things that we carry that are beneficial in our day-to-day life. They're necessary. They're necessary at times for survival, they're necessary for thriving, they're necessary for motivation, X, Y, or Z. Are these things still necessary, or do they need to continue to cleanse from the reality so we can step into a divine alignment in our own journey that actually redefines divine alignment, divine space based upon our own hand, our own opportunity, our own sewing, our own stitching, our own threading, and our own weaving? If you are the cloth maker of the universal fabric of time, why are we seeding and creating in such a way, intending or believing in such a way? And how do these intentions affect our benefic state in our benefic space from within us? Are these things helpful or hurtful? Right? We're looking at back to those original intentions. And I speak that because there's that Thor and Yor were forever woven together, always destined to die together. And when I saw that, it took me to that space. So when we redefine divine alignment and we take accountability for divine alignment, what we put out into the universe, what we intend, what we allow, what we journey through, right? Kind of like that space of boundaries. then what is it that we are aligning to, and what are we allowing to divine and align for us that might not be for our greater good? This is why Brom is saying, let's clear the seeds, clear the space, clear the dimensions, so we can get back to a beneficial value system in regards to our day-to-day life, our day-to-day activity, that is one that is warming up to love a lot more than it is to fear. The oppositions play a role in the contrast, right? Both sides of the coin are a part of the coin flip, right? It's like we recognize that's a part of what kind of like that dual space, or what those mirrored spaces are, is like both sides reflect and refract in perfect ways for one another. But within you is also acceptance, accountability, and choice through the intention. You have free will choice here. So a part of this is, rather than continuing to believe, the story in the book of others, is kind of stating, get your paper, pen, intelligence, light, and love back into your journey, and what do you want to create from here? You are at the artist's table of your own journey, and it's your connection to God, your connection to source, your connection to the universe that can create. And so what is it that you're intending, right? And I feel like this helps us to become more accountable of what we're putting out into the universe, more accountable for what we're sharing with other people, and more accountable for what we have to process, because this is a part of what's cleansing from our body. And as a result, we're looking at the personal identity, which could be the I, ego, self, the physical body, and what it needs to replenish so it can feel like it has divine alignment again. Divine alignment of form, the divine alignment of self, the divine alignment with source, the divine alignment with intention, and so we start weeping. And final message from a friend here. I know this is kind of a longer message, but we're just kind of playing on the day off. Thank you to the Labradorite Skull. I don't even have a name for you yet. It's kind of coming through as Doris right now. I don't know why. I've got Ronnie. This is Ronnie. Say hi to Ronnie. That's Ronnie. And I've got Hubert. Where's Hubert? Hubert's over here. Hubert's my dragon skull. And I got Doris. Ronnie, Hubert, and Doris. Alright, one more final message. Generosity. Giving back to the world, giving back to the self. The blessing. This level or sense of generosity is recognizing that we have something to give. You have something to give the world. There's something that you can provide that makes the world a better place. And the point is that we have these cross moments in history where things divine align, right? And then what do we do when we're there? Gift and generosity is talking about, like, here's the gift of your, which, by the way, I don't follow the runic story, so I don't know what the gift of your is. But when we see that this cross hatched means here, is that there are moments in time where things are supposed to align, supposed to occur. And when we're there, what do we do when we're there? When we're at those points in history, when we're at those markers, when we're at those moments that things come together, what do? We give back. Step, meet, soul greet. Balance the astral, align, and shift. So when we meet our mortal wounds, what do we do? When we meet those older intentions, what do we do? When we meet those things that no longer serve, what do we do? When we meet those spaces that feel harmonized and are divinely perfect, what do we do? Regardless of shadow cast or light cast, when we meet life, what do we do? For every gift to emerge, its reverse was birthed. Generosity shines bright and fair, but stay aware. For every gift to emerge, its reverse was birthed. So we recognize that there is still shadow being cast on the collective, right? As there is this part, like if you stand in the sun, right? And if you choose to see light like this, is that as we are picking up more fractals of self and light is returning, so is the shadow cast. And so we're looking at the deeper layers of the shadow wound that shows up, right? Through our own intentionality, through what we want to see happen in the world. I know for myself, there have been a few moments that things have happened, right, collectively. And I'm like, whoa, I can see within my contrast why I would want that to happen. And there's my choice. Do I want to cleanse that? Do I want to clear that from my narrative? Do I want to clear that from my story? And why? Right? And a lot of this is those deeper causation, the deeper questions, right? And then just being really kind and gentle with self and others as they're reclaiming their sense of ability, their sense of intentionality, their sense of the world, okay? Because it kind of is what happens when we're sitting in a distorted layer or a distorted part of our journey, is not being able to see clearly, and as a result acting out tendencies, experiences, traumas, wounds that might not be for the highest good. And when you step back and you're clear and you're observant of this stuff, how are you responding and what are you doing, right? I know for me it comes up with the great power comes great responsibility, and I'm not saying you have to take responsibility for this, but it's like if you're there and you're seeing someone who's playing this out, right, what can you do to assist? Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a rescuer or savior, but you can be a helper in some of these scenarios. But also recognizing that there are joyous parts of the journey where things align and they harmonize and they perfect. And so when you step into divine alignment, if you have seen contrast and polarity in divine alignment, it means that you are on one end of the pole and there is an opportunity to see the other part of that as well. Recently for myself, and then we'll close this out because this is a longer reading, was that I chose to show up at this job, right? And when I came here, the first thing I saw, like one of the first things I saw was an actual direct manifestation of the Ten of Cups. So I was sitting back and I saw my parents and I saw the bosses all talking, and there was a huge rainbow behind them, and I saw the Ten of Cups. Like I was like, this is literally the Ten of Cups. This is beautiful. But within that space and within all of those hues comes the contrast, came the work. And so as I showed up here, I saw the light and then I saw it go darker. And when I was like, why is this going to this space of like really uncomfortable, really, why? And it was because I was meant to work through the entire gridding of this network, which means I was supposed to see it from light to shadow, sometimes shadow to light. Life has its contrasts and its hues to work through. And I was like, wow. And I recognized that in the beginning, if life stayed all light, I wouldn't have more of those uncomfortable tests to release myself from a lot of those older traumas, worries, or thorns that were caught up in my field, my physical experience, my energetic body, right? Like the prickly pear, the defensiveness, the protection mechanisms, the hurts, the wounds, the pains. I needed to release those so life would get lighter or easier, back to the Firma. So as a result, when we have things that can be seen as like, if you want to believe as like fate or, karma dharma in this divine alignment, synchronicity, serendipity, is we're working through the contrast or polarities over the wounds of serendipity, the wounds of synchronicity, the wounds of divine alignment because of what's happened in the world. And as a result, this is saying, please be kind with self at the cross moments of history in which things didn't work out, to provide you enough opportunity to fill in the detail with where you need love in your journey. I know for myself, there was a moment where I was in flow. I was firing on all cylinders, and it was like I was tap dancing with life. And when you're tap dancing with life and you're going, and then you have that moment where you trip, you fall, you sprain an ankle, perhaps you fracture a bone, can sometimes feel like you cement into history a wound or a trauma that's saying, please unravel me so life can get lighter and easier. This is the shadow work. So essentially, clearing our intentions for why we do what we do helps us to be a part of the gift of refinement so we can redefine divine alignment. We can change history. We can change our life path. We can recognize that we don't have to fall for the spell of an old author. We can create a new one. And that is your choice in this journey. So a part of this is that you have a gift here, a gift. This gift is an opportunity for you to step fully into your own divine alignment, whatever that might be for you, to clear, cleanse, or to reunite a cross-hatched part of history and to rewrite a new one. Once again, it's like when we see things going through what they're going through, we cleanse the plate, we cleanse the chalice, we cleanse... That's funny, I'm not going to say that. We cleanse the experience, right? So we can start to birth or create new opportunities. So today, this message is just an alignment stating that there are things still clearing. Clearing from the seeds, clearing from the wounds, clearing from the hurts, clearing from the worlds, and clearing from the basic self, the static needs. So the reclamation of divine perfection can occur, and that the gift can be restored to your own personal your. This is a time for you to be generous with what you face in your day-to-day life and what the world brings forward for you, so you can continue to clear, cleanse, and align your reality to your own true perfection and true harmonic. All right, I love you guys. Much love and respect to all of you out there. Thank you again for your likes, shares, and subscribes. Let's keep going, guys. Keep going. I know a lot's occurring. Y'all, right? That remembrance that you are eternal, that you are one with the universe. Man, unpick the threads where you cannot sense the loving stitches, right? So this is a part of just that cleansing, that re-authenticating, that realignment in our journey, and a part of that is speaking openly and honestly with your own sense of reality and your depiction of the world and things like that, so you can honor your own truth, your alignment, and you can honor your own destiny. You can honor your own divine perfection. You can honor your harmonic perfection, because not everyone's harmonics are meant to align right now, because diversity is still a part of this world. So yes, while there is unity, in my opinion, there is still diversity. There's still free will choice, and we're still working through a big planetary liberation energetically in regards to that. So remember, with that is to be the author of your own life, to take the thread, the needle, the helm of the ship, and to drive and direct your movement moving forward through a sense of your own intentionality. But once again, is we're now seeing where we can clear some older seeds, some older codes, and some older keys from the reality, so we can come to a place that's very clear and love aligned in our journey. Namaste.